Traveling is my favorite thing to do. I plan obsessively, I research everything, and I've still made mistakes that I wish someone would have warned me about. So in this video, I'm sharing them with you so that you don't have to learn the hard way. For a lot of places around the world, the specific season you visit matters a lot. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is booking a trip without checking what season you're actually walking into. It may seem pretty straightforward, but a lot of attractions can be seasonal as well. I like to use an example close to home. The Canadian Rockies, either Banff National Park or Jasper National Park. They're beautiful to visit year-round, but some attractions and even roads close down in the winter season, which a lot of people don't realize. The opposite of this can also be true. Certain times of year are ultra popular in some places around the world. For example, cherry blossom season in Japan is beautiful, and because of that, extremely busy. If this doesn't really matter to you though, then I would avoid booking a trip during that busy time. Another layer here is also major events that are happening. I'll use this year, 2026, as an example. North America is hosting the FIFA World Cup across cities in Canada, Mexico, and the US, which means there will be an influx of international visitors to places like the Canadian Rockies as a result of people traveling to Canada for the World Cup. So even if you're not planning to go to Vancouver to watch World Cup action, Banff National Park is expected to be not only busy, but a lot more expensive as well. And you can probably imagine that other cities and other popular places in the US and in Mexico are also going to be busy because of an influx of international travelers. So before you book any major trip, always check these 3 things: weather patterns, peak seasons, and if there's any major events happening. I would also pay attention to largely celebrated religious holidays. For example, you might want to avoid visiting somewhere like Morocco during Ramadan, which is about a month long, and many places are closed down during the day or shut down early, so for the tourist experience, it's not exactly the same. And the season doesn't just affect crowds and pricing, it affects what you pack, especially when you're unsure about weather. And that's where today's sponsor helps, Unbound Merino. One of the biggest travel mistakes people make is overpacking, and the easiest way to avoid that is by choosing the right fabrics. That's why I always prioritize packing merino wool when I travel, because it's breathable and temperature regulating, so it works in warm weather and also in colder conditions. The best part is that it's naturally odor resistant, which means you can rewear pieces multiple times without washing them. When people ask me how I pack for a 3-week trip in just a carry-on, it's because I build my outfits around merino wool clothing. Unbound Merino has classic pieces that work for long flights, travel days, sightseeing, variable weather, and they even have more elevated looks as well. Check out the links in the video description and in the first comment to my favorite Unbound Merino pieces. One of the biggest hassles about travel is using your money in a foreign country. Hopefully you have 2-factor authentication on things like your online banking and to sign into your credit card accounts. 2FA is very smart, everyone should have it. But don't make the mistake I made and forget to change how you receive those codes before traveling internationally. I learned this the hard way. I couldn't authenticate a purchase because I wasn't receiving texts. This happened to me in Portugal when trying to buy tickets online for a certain time slot so that I could skip the line. For my credit card, I always received a text when trying to pay for things online internationally, but of course, since I use an eSIM when I travel instead of paying $15 a day to have access to my phone number, I wasn't able to receive texts to authenticate my purchase. So before you leave for your international trip, make sure you change your TFA to either email or use an authenticator app or a passkey. All right, now the travel industry is growing like crazy, and every year places get busier and busier. So if you've booked yourself a trip of a lifetime, or even any trip, if you have anything that's a priority for you, make sure you book it ahead of time. These days, things sell out days, weeks, and months in advance. Whether it's a special type of tour or excursion or a dinner reservation at a specific restaurant, don't wait until the last minute. If it's important that you do it, then I recommend booking it. I book a lot of fun tours and things to do through Viator and Get Your Guide, and what I like is that for most things, the cancellation policy is pretty flexible, meaning your credit card isn't even charged until a day or two before. So if I see something that I really like and I'm interested in doing, I'll book it, and then closer to my trip, I can always reschedule or cancel if plans change. Now, I recommend booking the important things and must-dos, but I also recommend not overscheduling your trip. It can be hard, especially when you don't know if you're ever going to get back to that spot, but the last thing you want is to be exhausted and not be able to fully enjoy everything that you planned. For this, I like to build in flex days when planning out my itinerary. Flex days can account for bad weather, when something you had planned to do earlier couldn't be done because the weather wasn't cooperating. Flex days can also be built-in days for rest if you need it. Or what I like to do is not plan anything, but then have one or two options for how to spend those flex days. And then these options are in the category of it could be fun and we would enjoy it, but we also wouldn't regret it if it didn't happen. For example, on our first trip to Japan, when we were planning it at home, Chris really wanted to visit Hiroshima. But having never been to Japan before, it seemed like it was just going to be too far to get to on this particular trip. However, we had planned an extra day in Kyoto as a bit of a flex day, and once we were actually there, we realized that the bullet train system was so fast and efficient that it was actually really easy for us to do a day trip to Hiroshima from Kyoto. So we did it. It was a beautiful sunny day, and then we realized that Kobe, the city famous for Wagyu beef, was easy to make a stop at on the way back, so we got off the train and found a lovely spot for dinner. All this is to say that planning this out prior to visiting seemed complicated and overscheduled, but once we were actually there, having that flex day allowed us to do everything that we wanted. Okay, hotels are a very important part of any trip, and they're often the most expensive. But I don't want you to book a hotel just because it's cheaper. It's going to cost you more time and energy than you realize. This is always one of the things that people would have done differently when they're reflecting back on their trip. You think booking a cheaper hotel saves you money, but sometimes it's worth paying a little bit extra to be closer or to just be in a better area. Being farther out means you're walking more, you're taking more transit, which means waiting for the transit and being on the transit, or you're using taxis or ride shares, which usually isn't cheap, and when you add it up at the end of the trip, it does cost a lot of money. This also falls into a bigger rule I try to follow when I travel: avoiding unnecessary friction. This means flying direct when you can, or it means not waiting 2 hours in line for tacos that are only marginally better than another taco stand that's half a block away. The best trips are when you value and protect your time and energy. Use that for things that will actually make your trip memorable. When you're researching hotels and restaurants and tours and things to do, I'm sure most of you read the reviews to help you make a decision. One big mistake that's easy to make is not sorting the reviews by the most recent instead of the default ones, which is the most relevant. I'll use a hotel as an example. When I'm researching hotels, I usually skim the first 10 or 20 relevant reviews, and just to make sure that it's generally in line with what I'm looking for, and if it is, then I'll sort the reviews by most recent. I've come across some places where the most relevant reviews are from 2 or 3 or even 5 years ago, and it all seems great, but then if you sort by the most recent, there might be things from the last few months that have changed. One big red flag could be that there's now major construction going on, or maybe there are new buildings that have been built, so now there's no more view. I've seen hotels get sold or be bought by a larger corporation, and not only does the service level go down, but amenities get taken away, and items that were free now have a charge, and all kinds of things that have just gone by the wayside. Don't book anything important on your arrival day, especially if it's something non-refundable. For example, things like shows and concerts, a cruise departure, or even fancy dinner reservations. Because even if you're scheduled to arrive at, say, noon or 2 p.m. and your reservation isn't until 7 p.m., if your flight is delayed by a few hours, you might miss it. Travel days are unpredictable, even if everything looks good on paper. So if you're booking something really important to you that you don't want to miss, I would make sure it's not on the day you arrive. Airport transportation is notoriously expensive and it's always inflated pricing. So never land in a new city without a transportation plan. This means either arrange your transportation ahead of time or at least research your options of what's available and how much each option generally costs. When you're tired and jet lagged, that's when you're most vulnerable to overpaying. The last thing you want to deal with is being taken advantage of by a transportation company that's going to charge you way more than they should. My favorite example of this is the touristy areas in Mexico, especially the Cancun airport. If you've never been there before, it's like this big airport taxi mafia and it's crazy expensive. But you can always arrange your own transportation at most airports. We've booked airport pickups through a company called Welcome Pickups, and we've had great experiences so far. So I left a link in the video description if you want to check that out, and they're worldwide too, not just Cancun. And if you're going to take public transit, it's nice to research ahead of time where you'll need to go because after a long flight, it can be super overwhelming, especially at a busy airport. And when you travel, most people do a lot more walking than you do at home, and shoes are arguably the most important thing that you're going to pack. You want to make sure your shoes are comfortable and something you can wear every day. We all fall into the trap of buying new outfits before a trip, myself included, but never bring a brand new pair of shoes on a trip without breaking them in first. There is nothing worse than finding out that your shoes hurt your feet on the very first day of your trip. Blisters are not a cultural experience. But if you do want to buy a new pair of shoes, wear them on the treadmill or a walking pad, or even better, go outside and walk. Walk for 30 or 40 minutes a few days in a row and then see how your feet feel. Okay, this last one is kind of embarrassing. Don't forget items in your hotel room when you check out. This seems obvious, but even still, on a recent trip, Chris and I actually each left a charger behind. So the trick is to buy chargers that are brightly colored or white ones so that they're easy to spot. But this also goes for everything else too. Triple sweep your room before you leave. All right, I've shared mine. Now tell me yours. What's the travel mistake you learned the hard way? And a virtual hug to whoever shares the most embarrassing one. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.